Hi there. Welcome to the Sober Circle channel. Enjoy this speaker tape.
This recording is part of the Northern California tape library about alcoholism and was recorded on March the 28th, 1986 at the 15th Annual Reno Spring Festival of Alcoholics Anonymous held in Reno, Nevada. The speaker, Gene Duffy of Calistoga, California. Please observe the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous and do not play this recording for entertainment or commercial purposes. And please do not break the anonymity of the speaker or any AA member at any public level. The original record and this copy were both made by Bart Daniel of 1332 Santa Ynez Way, Sacramento, California, zip 95816.
Our opening speaker, Gene D. from Calistoga.
My name is Gene, and I, too, am an alcoholic. And in identifying myself as an alcoholic, I base that identification on my interpretation of the definition of the word alcoholic as defined in the third chapter of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And I say this especially for those brave people who had the courage to identify themselves as new people here tonight. In the third chapter of that book, a book incidentally written by alcoholics, for alcoholics, they said this: we alcoholics are men and women who have lost the ability to control our drinking. And that's all they said. They made no mention of any requirements to be an alcoholic, no set of rules to qualify for membership in AA. Didn't say anywhere that you had to visit funny farms and sanitariums and spend a couple of months in jail, drink wine, live on Skid Row, marry the same woman 2 or 3 times. Those are things that anybody that drinks can do, you know. I certainly would be remiss, I guess, to fail to thank the committee for inviting me here. I assure you, you're in for a hell of a weekend once we get through with this mess tonight. Because all of your participants are here, and I've known them all, and I've heard them all, and Liz over here from New Zealand, I'm sure you'll want to make sure you hear her tomorrow in the daytime, and Rod and his lovely wife, the Al-Anon speaker, and Don from Colorado's floating around here someplace, or else he's making a 12-step call on the horsepower, I guess, or someplace like that. So it should be a hell of a weekend for those of you who are here to be part of it, It started off great for me. I won a couple of bucks right off the bat, but now I'm on sort of a downer. No, not on account of gambling. I was in the bowling alley a little while ago, watching some people bowl, and I was sort of enjoying it. And there's a bratty little kid running around making a lot of goddamn noise with chocolate all over his face, but he was the only disturbance, and I was sort of tolerating him until his mother showed up, His mother showed up and says, "Come on, Jerome." She says, "I'll take you downstairs so we can see the Walt Disney Festival of Fun." And that bratty little bastard says, "I'd rather sit here and watch the fat guys tie their shoes." But as I say, I've learned to live with these things, Got some wonderful friends of mine here tonight from all over, and it's always good to see old people. My friend Bill there used to be up in Washington and San Francisco. He's here now with you, and Jim Allen, and people from up around Washington and Oregon, and we have some very young people from my little hometown. That just shows you AA is alive even in little towns. We got a couple of brand new 15-year-old alcoholics here tonight for their first AA conference, so I think we ought to give them a little hand, Takes a lot of guts for a 15-year-old kid to come walking into a place like this with a bunch of assholes like us. And that's exactly how I felt when I first came, and I know how you guys feel. Some of you sitting there right now wishing the hell I'd shut up and this thing would get the hell over and you could get out back to your cruising, don't you, you know? But believe it or not, tonight could be, if it is the beginning of your entry into AA, it could be the most important and most eventful night of your life, because many of us will attest to the fact tonight life can really start for you, and that's what this program is all about. Don't ever confuse this program with one of sobering up drunks or being a detox program or a bunch of prohibitionists, because AA definitely is not that. I assure you, if this country had a wet and dry election tomorrow, we'd all vote wet, because it'd be horrible to have a slip and wind up in a dry country, you know. Yeah. Wouldn't it? Think of that for a minute, right? Don't think about it too much, you won't be able to sleep. No, you were responsible for it, you know. Let me tell you a little bit about what AA is and what you're about to start on. You're about to start on the greatest adventure you'll ever know in your life. And life is a very important thing. I don't know of anything that's more important than life. And there's some very cold facts that we've got to know about life, and things we should be aware of about life. Only a total absolute idiot would sit in this room or any other room like this any other place, thinking that he or she is going to get more than one chance at life. The rules say one time only, and that's it. Regardless of who you are or what you are or who you know. It's a one-way ticket. Only one chance at life. And the coldest fact that I can recall about life is a startling fact. Do you realize that from the moment that life starts, it begins to get shorter? That's right. Every unit of time that goes by is a part of your life that's over, done, finished. We can sit in here and laugh and giggle a little bit now, but when we leave this hall tonight, we will be an hour and a half or so closer to the end of our life. That won't keep you awake, will it? It won't help with your sleep either, especially if you're over 50. So I don't know what you want out of life. I know this: I want all I can get out of life. I'm a pig about life. I want to go every place there is to go. I want to do everything there is to do. I want to see everything there is to see. I want to meet everybody there is to meet. I want to read every book that was ever written, hear every song that was ever sung. Baby, I want it all, you know. And there's nothing wrong with wanting it all, you know. Just as long as you have enough common sense to know you're not going to get it all, you know. You're not going to get, and I can accept that. And I can accept something else based on my own personal experiences. And also the fact that my experiences were shared with your experiences. I'm guaranteed this: I can get more out of life clean and sober than I'll ever get out of it drunk and abusing. I have already proved that to myself. And so have you. So have you. There isn't a dishonest or honest person in this room right now that could ever say honestly, that your life was always better when you was drinking and using. You know different. Everybody in this room knows in their own life that life is better when I'm not drinking. But yet, based on some sort of figures that are bandied around in AA, almost half of us in this room are probably going to drink again. That's a hell of a thing to say at an AA convention, I know that. But before you start looking daggers at me, I didn't originate those words. Those words are also contained in the 5th chapter of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you need any recollection, that's where it says, despite all that we can say, many who are real alcoholics, by every form of self-deception and experimentation, will try to prove themselves the exceptions to the rule. You didn't get words in the book Alcoholics Anonymous like this because we all made it from step 1. In the book it says, many of us participated in countless vain attempts trying to prove that we could once more control and enjoy our drinking. That's the story of the people who persist in the illusions that the book refers to. The illusions, you know, that somehow, some way, someday, we'll once more be able to be normal drinkers. And I get icy every time I say that. Normal drinkers. You know, it's tragic. And I don't say this to put a damper on anything, really, but fact is fact. Fact tells us that there is undoubtedly, or the possibility is great, that there sits at least one amongst us tonight who will make an attempt to become a normal drinker. And the price for our attempts at becoming a normal drinker are far beyond monetary now. They don't mean money now. The price of a drink for you and I now costs us our family, our self-respects, our jobs, our vocations, our health, whatever. We have to put the whole ball of wax up on the line now when we say, give me a little VO and water. It's a big new ball game. And in this attempt to become a normal drinker, some of us will die. Some of us will wind up incarcerated, perhaps for the rest of our lives, in mental or penal institutions. Some of us will lose our jobs, our families will suffer the humiliation and the degradation that's part of. All in this asinine attempt to become a normal drinker. And you know the startling thing about that? There isn't an alcoholic who walks the face of this earth, male or female, who could ever tolerate for more than 3 seconds the conditions that surround normal drinking. Watch them out there tonight, the normal drinkers. They about drive you crazy. I watch them. I'm still sick, you know. They leave half of a drink on the bar and go home. They talk while they drink. They say the goddamnedest things. No thanks. Two's my limit. Oh, I've had enough. Let's eat. They put the cat back on the bottle. Normal drinkers. You know, it's sort of ironic that we can giggle and laugh a little bit about it, but on the other hand, it's tragic because it's the truth. It's the truth. Some of us will die in an attempt to try to be like that. Try to be like that. I met a guy as I came in here this afternoon, not on AA, a fellow I hadn't seen in many, many years, and he was checking in the same time I was, and we chatted quickly, and he said, where'd you come up from? And I said, the Bay Area. And he said, how did you get here? And I didn't know what the hell to tell him. I said, how much time you got? How did I get here? How did I get here? I'd like to tell the new people how I got here because it's a good reminder, I guess, for all of us sometimes. And I just told this to a group of people the other day at a meeting. And it's good and it's necessary, of course, that I continue to remind myself that I, too, walk with clay feet, and at any given time, my insanity can erupt. And the same kind of positive thinking that I have now can become negative just like that. I can stand here and swear and vow allegiance to AA, and 30 seconds later say, what the hell am I doing with these bunch of assholes? You know? That's part of the illness, and I understand that. You know? And a lot of people wonder how alcohol can ever get that important to me and you. You know, they say, hell, Jesus, we're going to cause you all that trouble. Why don't you knock it off, you know? My brother did that. My brother came home sick when he was 17. And I remember that Sunday morning well. Mother was sitting out in the kitchen with me, and we were listening to my brother do the national anthem in the bathroom, you know, and, Jesus Christ, sounded like 10 dead dogs in there, you know. And he finally stumbled out on his knees, you know, and my mother wisely, you know, and sarcastically said, "How did you enjoy your date last night?" You know. And so he asked her, he says, "Mama," he says, "something I don't really understand." He says, "We drank some things called daiquiris last night." And he says, "Jesus, I'm sicker than hell." He says, "Do you always get sick when you drink?" And she says, "Most of the time." And at 17, he said, "Well, in that case, I'll not drink again." And my brother's 68 years old, and he has never had another drink since. And he don't run off to meetings. He don't buy books. You know, you don't see praying hands all over his house. You know. People say to him, "How come you don't drink, Jack?" He says, "I got sick the first time I did." They don't say, "Well, this is how it was, and this is what happened, and here's what it's like now." You know, I know that alcohol can kill me, and you know that alcohol can kill you, but yet we're going to drink again. And we were just talking about that the other day, you know. I have a friend down in Southern California who came up to speak at our St. Patrick's Day. A lot of you've heard him up here, Clancy. And Clancy and I was lying to each other, you know, telling each other, "Can you top this sort of stories," you know. And we got to one point where we were discussing why non-alcoholics, you know, sort of throw up their arms in disdain, you know, about, "Jesus Christ, what can you do with them alcoholics? We try to help them, and they go right on out and drink again." And we were talking about one doctor in particular who has made it known now that he will not accept any alcoholics as patients because he's just fed up with them, I guess. And I said, "Well, didn't you tell him why it's like that?" And he said, "Well, he wouldn't have understood." And I said, "Why, sure he would. And I'm sure you would understand, you know, why it seems that people who are not alcoholic have difficulty in understanding us. And it's simple once it's explained. Because, you know, the non-alcoholic, as intelligent as they are, and as dedicated as they are, and as concerned as they are, they just don't have what we need. You see, they're always telling us things that we already know. You know, the doctor pokes around in there and says, "Holy Christ, if you don't stop drinking, you're going to die. Your liver's bad." Yeah, I know that. Or the employee assistance counselor says, "If you don't stop drinking, you're going to lose your job." Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that, too. Or how about you dear Al-Anons that are not poking fun at you? You know, but you said, "Well, if you don't stop drinking, I'm going to divorce you." We know that, too. You know. Or the priest says we're going to go to hell, or the shrink says we're going to go... We know all of these things. That is not our illness. Our illness is not what alcohol is doing to us. Never has been our illness. Our illness is what alcohol does for us. And that's what they don't understand. They don't understand that if I told you if I drank a half a gallon of Gallo dark port right now, I'd think I had a full head of hair. And another bottle or two would give me back a 28-inch waist, you know. Now, you laugh because you understand that. I try to tell that to them straight people, and they lock me up, you know. That goddamn fool's crazy, you know. But how does alcohol get so important? How does it get so important? And you know it gets important, doesn't it? Hey, you new people, and I notice most of you seem to be young, but that doesn't mean you haven't been paid your dues yet. I understand that. But you know, some of us in here have gone pretty far with this problem. Some of us are on our way going pretty far. We're guaranteed in our book that if we persist in these illusions that somehow we'll be able to drink again, that as a result of the progression of our illness, we'll get worse and worse over any period of time. And that eventually a time will come, and this is heavy, but it's the truth, damn it. A time will come in the life of any practicing alcoholic who persists in these illusions. The time will come when alcohol will not only be the most important thing in your life, you will insanely believe that it is your life. And I know damn well that I'm not the only person in this room tonight who hasn't had that belief. Surely there are others in this room besides me who sometime in your past have grasped your head and said, Jesus Christ, give me a drink before I die. And you believed you were going to die. And I ask you only this, and there's no need to talk about it or answer it to anybody else, only to yourself, because that's the only place it carries any degree of importance. If you were convinced that you were going to die if you couldn't get a drink, what would you be willing to do to get that drink? In its simplest terms, what are you willing to do to keep from dying? What you and I are willing to do to keep from dying is referred to in the foreword to the first edition of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. The very first words ever written, where it tells about our book and our program. And it says that we are convinced that the accounts of our experiences, both good and bad, might perhaps be an integral part of your acceptance to the truth and the wisdom of this program. So for those of you who are new here, tonight or any other night, that's all that we have to offer you. We certainly are not authorities or very knowledgeable on alcoholism. But the accounts of our experiences have accomplished the most important thing in alcoholism. Whatever it is, we don't seem to have it now. And that's all that's important to you and I. I don't know why I got to a point where I'd done and would do again the things that were part of my drinking career in order to get a drink. Things that I'm not going to stand here for the next half hour and bore you with and repeat over and over again. Things that many of you yourselves have done and you've heard others say it's not important. I could tell you about jails, institutions, prisons, DTs. I lived for a year and a half of my life on Chicago's Skid Row. Have done some scummy, rotten things, you know. And it's probably only important that I remember those, you know. The problem isn't how I got into the mess. The problem is how I got out of the mess. And that's what we offer you, Let me tell you where I discovered the importance, please, in alcohol. Because it can start way, way back. And it may not erupt until way, way, way later. And I tend to believe that's what happened with me. I don't recall being a boozer in the 6th grade. I don't have that good a memory. Many of you know I don't even have an education. And I'm always, I don't want Rod to get mad at me, but I'm always amazed at them guys down in Texas, the memories they have. I heard one here just not too long ago. Remembered having 17 martinis when he was 9. I couldn't even count to 17 when I was 9. As a matter of fact, I couldn't count to 9 when I was 17. But I don't really know where my drinking problem started. I remember the discovery of it, It happened in school with me as it happened with many other people. Only I didn't go to the kind of a school. I saw one today, as a matter of fact. I guess many of you know where Marin County is, you know, peacock feathers and all that kind of crap, and really a class neighborhood. And I drove through there this morning in a place called Tiburon. They're building looks like a new high school or something there, and beautiful looking building, you know, and trees around, and has a big sign up in front, you know, under construction, this is the site or whatever. Future site here. Listen to this, will you? Of Francis W. Pennington High. If I went to a high school with a name like that, I wouldn't tell anybody. I imagine they got canaries on their football helmets, you know. Francis W. Pennington High. High school I went to didn't have a name, had a number. If it had a name, it would have been something like Lucky Luciano Tech. Al Capone Prep, you know. Driver's education in our school was how to leave the scene of an accident, you know. I tell that story all the time because it reminds me of the difficulty I had, you know, growing up and trying to learn things. Let me tell you how tough this program really was for me, you know. And not that I'm full of self-pity, but I can't read very well. I can read, but I can't remember what I read. And it's a legitimate illness. There's something optical or something. They say that the words that I see come in here, and they get back in here, and they get stuck there. They don't go any further. I can read the same book over and over again and get a laugh and kick out of it every time I read it, you know. Oh, gee, that's a bitch. You know. So I had a lot of trouble in school, you know. I had special education in school. They call that welcome back Cotter now. But the thing that was important happened to me in school was that when I left to go into high school, I was told, and some of you know about this, I was told that it was a requirement in New York State by the Board of Regents that high school students take a foreign language. That was strange to me because I had been getting F in English for 8 years, you know. And I recall, I think I was given a choice between French, German, possibly Italian, and Spanish. And after some thinking over, you know, my older brother Jack was with me, and I was an altar boy. All little Irish Roman Catholics are altar boys, and so I knew the Latin of the Mass, and I knew the Confiteor and a few things like that. So my brother Jack said, maybe you better take Latin or take Spanish. He says, it's a little bit like Latin. Might help you out a little bit. So as a freshman, I took Spanish 1. And as a sophomore, I took Spanish 1. And as a junior, I was taking Spanish 1, and I was still taking Spanish 1 when I was a senior. And that was prior to World War II in 1941, and I split from high school at the suggestion of the New York City Police Department and voluntarily enlisted underage at age 16 in the United States Marines. Now, I lost my virginity in a house of ill repute in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And I learned more Spanish that night than I did in the whole 4 years in high school. I certainly don't tell you that to be vulgar, because it means a lot to me. Because I'm convinced of this. I really am convinced of this. That when the time came in my life, when, as the book says, you know, I had reached that dilemma, it says, a dilemma will precede your decision whether to continue on in your madness or reach out for the recovery. And when that time came in my life, and I reached out for this program, if this program had been anything else other than a program of one alcoholic sharing his or her personal experiences with another alcoholic, I'd be dead today. Or I'd be back in the penitentiary today. Or I'd be back on Skid Row today. I certainly wouldn't be in Reno, Nevada, I guarantee you that. Not in here, anyhow. I had difficulty trying to read this book. I had difficulty trying to read this book. The words were very big for me, believe it or not, and I know it's simply written. But many of the words I couldn't understand, and I had to be coached actually through them. And sometimes when they were explained to me, I still didn't know what the hell they meant. But I was extremely fortunate, because the three men who worked with me closely were men who didn't ask me to read the words. They allowed me to watch the words. They walked through this program. They walked like they talked. I just heard a guy say this today, and it brought back a memory. He was telling a newcomer, he says, make sure you go to 60 meetings in 60 days. And I sort of cringed when he said it. Nobody ever said that to me. They said, me and you are going to 60 meetings in 60 days. And they went with me. They went with me. They worked this program. And there's a whole chapter about that. And they call it Into Action. And as a result of that, I began to understand the words in the book Alcoholics Anonymous. And of course, if you stay around here long enough, you'll see them over and over and over again. But you know, the importance of alcohol came to me at that high school situation. I'm a little ghetto kid, you know. It was Depression time. Times were tough and all of that. And my mother and father were split, and I was living with my mother. And we were on welfare, on relief, they called it in those days. And it was just a tough old time. But that didn't bother me, because I lived in a neighborhood that everybody was on relief. You know, everybody had patches on their clothes. Everybody got food from the welfare. Everybody got assistance from the Salvation Army. So there was no big shame to it, you know, because everybody understood. But of course, there was that other place, someplace else in town where it wasn't like that, where the sort of the rich kids lived. But I never got over into their area, so it never bothered me. I was very comfortable where I was, until a very traumatic thing took place in my life. That wasn't part of any plan of mine, just like we can't always expect our plans to be carried out. Sometimes you and I figure in the plans of other people, and their plans are the plans that are carried out. And that certainly happened to me. Because being a dumb kid, I was resigned to the fact that when it came time to go to high school, I would go to the technical high school, which was in our town. In most major cities, they generally have three kinds of high schools, or they used to have. They had the technical high schools where you learn how to work in the print shop, or change truck tires, or be a barber, or work in a gas station, beauty parlor for the girls. Then they have the commercial high schools where you go learn how to type and do all of that kind of stuff. Most of the chicks go down there. And then they have the academic high school where the future doctors and lawyers and all of them people go. Think for a minute now if you've ever lived in a city that had three kinds of high schools like that. Now, I'll tell you a strange phenomenon that you won't be aware of until right now. How come the academic high school is always in the rich kid side of town, and the technical high school is always in the poor kid side of town? And that's how it was. But my father had designs on me being the first Irish president. My mother wanted me to be the first American pope. They didn't check with my teachers to find out if I was smart or dumb. They just enrolled me in the academic high school. Holy Christ. There they took me out of an environment that I was totally comfortable in and took me literally across town and placed me as an alien in amongst all of them rich kids. And I did the same thing you would do. I withdrew because I was terribly ashamed of who I was, what I was. I was ashamed of my clothes. I was ashamed of my address. I was ashamed of my mother, and how sad that is now. My mother was the scrub woman in the rich kids' high school. I was ashamed of the fact that I only had jelly in my sandwiches. I was ashamed of the fact that I wore sneakers as everyday shoes. I was ashamed of everything about me. And so I stayed away from them rich kids. I had a pal, a little Polish kid by the name of Richard Galazzi. Got killed in Iwo Jima during the war. And Richard was in sort of the same position I was. So we sort of stayed together. And because our families were on welfare relief, we were allowed to participate in the federal program they had in those days called the National Youth Administration, which meant that if you could get a legitimate job, that you'd only have to go to school till noon. And then you could go and do your work. And I had a job delivering groceries, and Richard swept up machine toolings in a foundry. So we just went to school till noon, took all of those required subjects, you know, that you were going to need when you grew up, like calculus and geometry, things I use daily, you know. But we'd leave school every day at noon. Now, I'll tell you something about school, and I love to tell this. God, I love to tell this. You know, in a lot of our darkness, there's brightness and comfort as you get a little bit older, and they call them memories. I was in love in high school, just like you are. Everybody in this room was in love in high school. As a matter of fact, I was in love in the 4th grade. I was in love with a dago by the name of Antoinette Santopolo. Jesus Christ, every time I talk about her, I get clammy and itchy and, you know, and I can see her right now, jet black curls, you know, and she wore a navy thing shirt and a blue skirt, and God damn, you know, just talking loose. And I would have died for Anna. They call that puppy love, I guess, you know, and I'm a firm believer that's the only real love we'll ever experience. I believe that's the purest form of unconditional love known to man. Because at age 11, you're not interested in the size of her boobs or her rear end or whether she's got a car or lives in an apartment, you know. You're just in love with the person. And I was in love with Antoinette. She was a rich kid, and I walked her home from school every day, every day. She never knew it, because I was always about a block behind her, you know. I just never had the damn guts to go up there and talk to her. And then one day we had to stay in after school because we weren't allowed to go to work. But it was the day of the dance club. And every high school has a dance club, you know. And they have a little dance down in the boys' gym. They play records and everybody goes down there. And Richard and I went to the dance. I knew Antoinette Santopolo would be down there. And Richard had a girlfriend by the name of Josephine Aspenreiter. Her mother worked up in the principal's office, you know. And so Richard and I went down to the dance in the hopes that we could get to dance with Antoinette and Josephine, you know. And there we were. The boys are always on one side of the gym. You know how it is. The girls get on the other side. And boys always get over where the tumbling mats are hanging on the wall, you know. And they glue themselves up there like that. And there was old Richard and I, and pretty soon one of the teachers went out and put the record on, and everybody came off the wall and started to dance, except me and Richard. I was ashamed of my shoes. I was ashamed of my shirt. The sweater I had on said compliments of the American Red Cross, you know, and just too embarrassed to go out there. Didn't like myself. And Richard was having the same problem, and then something happened. He said, Duff, he says, I've got something in the locker. He says, that I stole from my father. He says, I don't really know what it is. He said, but whatever the hell it is, it sure loosens up my family. He said, my father makes it out of dandelions. And he says, on the weekend, he says, all of my relatives come over there and they drink this stuff. And then they sing songs from the old country. And they do old country dances and they joke and they laugh and they forget about being poor, and they just have a good time. He says, what do you think? And I said, Jesus, let's try it, you know? Let's try it. Well, we went downstairs and into his locker, and it was football season, and we both played on the team, and so he pulled out his football pants. That's where he had it. Out came the helmet, shoulder pads, hip pads, socks, cleats, way down in the knee. He had a mayonnaise jar full of dandelion wine. Now, for those of you who are young and don't know what that would look like, it would look like a urine specimen for a buffalo, you know? And he took a couple of whacks out of it, and I took a couple of whacks out of it, and we went down to the gym. As soon as they started to play the music, I walked right across the floor, right up to Antoinette Santopolo, the most important thing in my life. And every one of you has had a time like that in your life. And I said, Antoinette, would you dance with me? And she said, yes. Jesus Christ. The cannons went off, the flags were waving, the bands played. Zoom! It was the greatest moment in my life. And you know what I'm talking about. I was holding the only thing I gave a good goddamn about. Oh, it was the most precious time in my life. And I had them 3 dances. And I brought her back where I was supposed to bring her back. And then I was supposed to go back to my side and wait till them start playing again. But I only got as far as the middle of the gym, and I run right into Richard. And we didn't even have to talk. We just looked at each other, and the words said, let's go get some more. And downstairs we went, and we got some more, and I came back, and I started to dance with everybody in there. I didn't give a damn about my shirt or the Red Cross or anybody else. We had a few more, and I started dancing with the teachers. I danced with Mary Ciano, my math teacher, and I danced with Alice Scott, the librarian, that big, about 9'8", you know. And then I spotted a little student art teacher, Nettie Meyer-Huber. She looked like she had been poured into this outfit, you know, just everything was just right. And while I was dancing with her, I put my hand down on her butt and I whispered something obscene into her ear. And I got thrown out of the dance and the school at the same motion, you know. Oh! But that didn't make any difference. I remember coming down the hill from that high school, jumping over hedges, leaping over the fire hydrant, saying hello to the world. Christ, it was the greatest day in my life. I had actually held Antoinette Santopolo. I had talked to her, hooray, God bless America and all that. And then all of a sudden, bang! Down on my knees I went with my head a half a foot into the sewer, throwing up the damnedest green, yellow bile you ever saw in your life. And I heard and I heard and I shook and I sweat and I thought I was going to die. And that's the same conflict I carried for the rest of my life. And it's the same conflict you carried for the rest of your life. The same thing that had given me the most important time in my life had also put me on my knees, thinking I was going to die. So I started or embarked on that great conflict, me against the bottle, destined to lose and to lose bad, because the bottle always wins. I tried to make a deal with alcohol just like you did. I said, from now on, I won't drink so much dandelion wine. The next time I'll drink better wine. The next time I won't drink as much. And that went on all during my drinking career. Until finally that time came when I faced the real dilemma. The time when I had to make my decision as you have to make yours. And for those of you who are new here, it's you who are going to make the decision. None of us can make it for you. This is a program designed for a new way of life. And if that be your choice, then join us. If that's not your choice, then Godspeed, go out and do your thing. Do your thing. But if you want what we have, it is here. It's right here in this room right now. In some cases, it sits on both sides of you, front and back. It's right here. And all you have to do is reach out for it. Reach out for it. The dilemma that I had to face is the dilemma that we all faced. Never, of course, probably in the same place. the time came when my drinking had regressed to Chicago Skid Row. And I love that word dilemma because it's a scary word, you know. I never knew what it meant at first but I knew it sounded bad. It was a word that you should always say, after it, you know. And I asked a guy in our group one day, a school teacher. I said, Paul, I looked up the word dilemma in the dictionary, and I said, I don't really understand what the hell it means. Tell me in my language what it means. And Paul says, well, in your language, Duff, he says, a dilemma is when you have the opposite answers for the same question. And both answers are valid. I figured, God, he's going into early male menopause or something. How can you have opposite answers and they both be right? And he says, take an inventory and think. And I thought for a while, and then I remembered, and he was right. And you've been there, too. Oh, you weren't in the same spot, perhaps, that I was. I was in a place called Big Rothschild's. Scummy, sleazy little place in West Madison Street in Chicago, Illinois. And that's where I faced my dilemma. I had gone in there as usual on a morning with that old wine shuffle, just shuffling along, you know. And now you're reduced to there's not even a need for conversation anymore, just the presence of the money, that's all they got to see. And you put something up there, count pennies, nickels, dimes, or whatever the hell you got. And if they count to 15, then they know you're okay. They pour 4 ounces of some rat gut called wine into a 7-ounce paper cup. And I'll tell you a little secret about Skid Row, if you've never been there. All alcoholics cry on Skid Row in the morning before they have their first drink. And any guy in here that comes off the street knows exactly what I'm talking about. You cry because that's the only time in that 24-hour period that you have to come face to face with some semblance of reality and the full honest truth of knowing not only what you've done to yourself, but what you've done to everybody around you. And it's a horrifying moment. Oh, they're not big beagle-like tears that come rolling out. It's sort of an icy-like mist. And you sit there, and I apologize for this word. You sit there looking at that friggin' drink, knowing damn well that if you drink it, it's going to kill you. You know that. If I drink it, it'll kill me. And yet in the back of your head, something's saying, but if you don't drink it, you'll die. And that's opposite answers for the same question. And they're both valid. Time for a decision. Some choose then to go on with their madness, and God takes them on their journey. And then perhaps some like us decide to reach out for that hand that has always been there and is still there alongside of you right now. And all you need to do is reach out for that recovery. And if you're ashamed of this, if you're ashamed of this apparent sign of weakness, then you've been listening to the wrong people. But don't feel bad about listening to the wrong people, because with this group's permission, I want to share something with you that's just recent in my AA career that has taken away a lot of the misconceptions that I had about this weakness. For over 30 years, like many of you in here, I have sat here abiding by the traditions of Alcoholics Anonymous. We can't oppose or endorse any outside causes. We can't get involved in any controversy. We hear people ridicule us, mimic us, and we just bow our heads and pray for them. And that's how it should be. That's how it should be. But it hurts when you continually hear people refer to us as the weak-willed, People who lack willpower, lack courage, outcasts, drunkards. But you sit there and you take it for a while. Recently, I was lucky enough to participate in a non-AA activity in a place called Montpelier, Vermont. Let me tell you about that. And I want to tell you how I feel today, and this is how I feel. And this feeling don't come from my head, it comes from my gut and from my heart. And it was given to me because it's far beyond anything that I could ever have originated. But I went to this thing, this seminar type thing for a weekend as the token alcoholic. They wanted to see what an alcoholic looked like. And it was a gathering of members of the clergy, all denominations, who were also psychologists. And they were working on this thing this weekend, anti-alcoholic treatment. They believe that the government is spending too much money and there's too much attention being thrown at alcoholics, and that our illness, if it is an illness, is only another form of gluttony. That was the basis of their meeting, gluttony. And let me tell you before I go any further, these were educated, dedicated, well-mannered people, full and total belief of what they were talking about. And they knew how to present it to each other. But it riled me. Man, I sat there Friday and Saturday and Sunday morning ready to die. I was burning up. My butt was bright red. It was puckering. Because they were continually referring to me as the alcoholic, you know. And then as they were closing this session on Sunday afternoon, it was a sort of a situation like this. All the participants were sitting up here, and you had your name in front of you, and I was way down the end. And they were directing questions back and forth, and it came to just about concluding the meeting. And then this redneck, bigoted ass who was the chairman made the mistake of his life. Generally, they always close meetings like that, and I have been with many of them, and they always say, anything you'd like to say in closing? And usually you say, no thanks, I'm glad I'm here, good luck to all of you, and you go like that. Give me my check, let me get out of here, you know. But when he said, Mr. Duffy, is there anything you'd like to say? And he never should have done that. Because all of this that has been inside for so long, just burst out. And I said, yes, there's a few things that I'd just like to clear away the smoke so there aren't any wrong ideas around here. And I said, I'd like to do it from the podium. So he invited me up there. And I said, here's how I feel, and if you don't like it, that's tough. I said, first off, and I'm not going to mention this guy's name. I said, Friday night in that wonderful talk that you gave, I said, you kept referring to alcoholism as gluttony. I said, you even went as far as to compare you and I in a little system of you eating all them bananas and me drinking the booze. And I said, you remember what you said? And he said, yeah. I said, well, what you said is that if you had a stalk of bananas and I had a barrel of whiskey, and every time I took a drink of whiskey, you'd eat a banana, that pretty soon you'd get sick from all of them bananas. And that I'd get sick from all of that booze because we overindulged. I said, is that what you said? He said, that's right. And I said, well, I agree with you. And Jesus, he smiled. And then I give it to him. I said, but would you be at the market tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock waiting to buy some more bananas? And he didn't know what in the hell to say to that. And I said, you keep talking about willpower. Now I'm going to tell you a secret. I said these, and I don't know where these words come from. I really do know it. I believe God put these words in my mouth, because I certainly don't have any kind of talent to think this up. I just don't know where they came from. And I said things like this: you continually refer to lack of willpower. I said, you know what I believe now? And I do believe this now. And each day this belief becomes stronger. I think they have been wrong all along. We never have been weak-willed people. We are probably the most strongest-willed people who walk the face of this earth. The proof? Simple. Has there ever been an alcoholic in this room who, when you decided you wanted to have a drink, didn't get it? There are 383 statutes on the law books of our country to keep us from drinking. And yet alcoholism is at its highest level in history. They put me in prison to keep me from drinking. And I drank more in prison than I did in going to prison. Where the hell do you think Pruno was invented? By Robert Mondavi? Or who do you think discovered about squeezing red label Sterno through a sock? Coors beer? The House of Seagram certainly knows nothing about them 4-ounce bottles of liquid Griffin shoe polish going through a loaf of white bread. Who knows about those things? People whose will was so strong to get a drink that they got it. I believe this, and I started to say this in jest because I was getting wise now. But after I said it, I said, hell, there's nothing funny about that. It's the truth. I believe you could take two alcoholics, handcuff them, march them out into the most remotest section of the desert, tie them to a stake, and leave them there. And if these two guys came up with a desire to drink, due to that uncanny ingenuity of the alcoholic, it would only be a matter of seconds, and they'd have a formula for distilling sand. I believe that. I believe that. And then you know what they said? They said, we lack courage. We lack courage. That shows you how ignorant they are. We don't have to pat ourselves on the back, and we certainly don't have to point out others anything about our own courage, because our courage is a unique kind of courage. It's a personal courage. It's not measured with varsity letters or diplomas or medals or songs and ballads. It's a personal degree of courage. A unique kind of courage that's only present inside of the guts of people like you and I, who have been brought to a point where we're faced with a decision to release without any kind of guarantee, without any promises, and nothing more than blind faith, to release the most important thing in our life, the thing that has hid us for so long from the real world, the thing that is going to expose us as a result of its release for who and what we really are, for the world to see, so that we can recover. And that takes courage. And you have it, and you have it, and you have it. And I pray to God all of you guys in the middle have it. Thank you very much for having me.